So welcome to today's edition of Sakhisizwe Building the Nation Podinasi here on Push Radio 89.5 FM, the mother of all community radio stations. And also thank you very much for joining us during the 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children. And today we are broadcasting live from Home of Hope, and we're just going to be speaking a little bit more about what they are doing and how they are raising more awareness around the 16 days of activism.
Yeah, and this year's theme is Unite to End Digital Violence Against All Women and Girls. So from now until December 10th, we're taking our microphones directly to the organizations that are making a real difference in our communities. And today we're broadcasting live from Home of Hope, as Jasmine has said. And yeah, essentially it's a beacon of safety and healing for survivors, because digital violence, from online harassment to cyber stalking, is real, it is harmful, and it is time we address it head on.
And like Marielle basically stated, so for the next 16 days, we stand united against violence targeting women and children. And today we are broadcasting live from Home of Hope, and we will witness firsthand the devastating impact of abuse, neglect, and also abandonment on the most vulnerable members of our society, where many of the children in the world carry visible scars, not just from trauma, but also from fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, a permanent reminder of violence that began even before the child was born. But here at Home of Hope, they also witness resilience, healing, and also hope. And during these 16 days, we are sharing stories and insights from our communities, and also listening to the staff members, the leadership, and those whose lives have been transformed. And together we can break the cycle of violence and create a future where every child is safe, valued, and empowered to reach their full potential. So right now we will be giving it over to our guests. So who's going to introduce themselves first? So Eleanor Brooke, I think we should start with you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I am Eleanor Brooke, the founder and CEO of Home of Hope, and just want to say thank you. Welcome to us.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kayla Abel, and I am the acting CEO of Home of Hope.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Roxanne Naika, and I'm the principal of Amatemba School, one of the projects of Home of Hope.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Stephanie. I am the marketing manager at the office, part of Home of Hope.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Landi So, a senior teacher at Amatemba School.
Okay, so that is our guest for today. If you can maybe share what brought each one of you to Home of Hope and what this work truly means for you on a personal level, especially during this critical time of activism against violence.
For me, it was a vision that I received to start Home of Hope. It initially started as a place to try and find families for children, and then we discovered FASD, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, and from there we have evolved into what we are today.
From my side, I actually joined Home of Hope purely after finding a part-time job at the time, and started as a teacher's assistant, and kind of went through all the projects, and then just found the love for the type of child that we work for. They are so awesome, so I literally couldn't leave.
Okay, so for me, I also started as a teacher about 7 years ago, and my passion is helping children. And at Amatemba School, I saw there was a holistic need, and my love for the children grew, and meeting their needs and their challenges, watching them grow, and also succeed in the little things.
Many people don't actually realize that children are affected by fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, for instance, and are victims of violence even before they are born. But how does prenatal alcohol exposure connect to the broader conversation about protecting that woman and also the children that are affected by these decisions that the mother basically takes during that time when she falls pregnant?
These women come out of environments where there's a lot of violence, poverty, that sets them up to start drinking. And so that's the root cause of where it starts. And then from there, a child has no say whether their mom drinks or not. And so it affects it today where we have the FASD problem in our country. And you need to think about, if you look at the secondary disabilities of somebody with FASD, aggression is part of what they struggle with. And so it really affects today's society.
And it's truly a problem in the world that we're living in, because like you say, a lot of people, addiction that they are on, and a lot of people are not able to get off that addiction. But how can we better equip our mothers also, that because they're not thinking about the child in that space, and then at the end of the day, it's the child that needs to suffer with that. And a lot of people or parents, once they find out their child are diagnosed with fetal alcohol syndrome, for instance, they neglect their child or abandon their child. So what can we better do, or how can we better equip our communities to better take care of these children and also provide more education to the parents?
I think it's important to realize that everybody plays a role in this. We've got to create awareness. So if I see a mother drinking while she's pregnant, we should be bold enough to go and say and inform them, educate them. I think we must be careful that we don't judge people, because often, alcohol is legal in our country. So we're trying to take a challenge on that's something that's legally accepted. It's a social norm for us. Young people don't even know they're pregnant, they're partying, they're drinking. So I think it just needs to be, a lot of awareness needs to go out, and we should be speaking to everybody about this challenge and problem.
Eleanor, and you touch on a very interesting point, because like you've mentioned, a lot of awareness, like more education needs to be done around this, and this can, any of the ladies can basically answer this, because you spoke about the party scene, especially amongst youngsters, when they do go out to a party or so forth, and maybe you are a month pregnant or 2 months pregnant, you will hear the friend say, no, it's fine, it's a cider, it's not going to cause harm to that child, or it's just one drink, so it's fine, you can drink it. Like, if you can maybe just touch a little bit more on that aspect, because a lot of newborn parents, for instance, mothers, they don't know the harm that they can actually cause, but because they're listening to someone that's maybe older than them or so forth, that encourages them or influence them to have that drink. They have that drink because they think it's not going to cause harm to the child.
So if I can give you an example, would you take a bottle of beer, put a teat on it, and give it to your baby to drink? No, you wouldn't. So it's exactly the same thing prenatally. You are drinking, and it's going directly through your system into the baby. Your baby does not have a kidney, doesn't have liver yet developed to be filtering out, sorting it. So it's going directly through the bloodstream into that baby, and it affects the child. So, and there's no research that says how much alcohol actually affects it. And the part of the fetus that's developing is the brain, and it develops right from conception right until birth. The baby's brain is developing, and that is being affected. So there's no reason why you can say it doesn't matter how much, or we don't know. Rather be safe than sorry. And I think we must also understand this is not just unique to poverty or from rich to poor. Everybody is doing this. You even hear doctors say it's okay to have a glass of wine. It's not okay. We see the results in children that has this problem.
You brought up a really interesting point about doctors saying that sometimes they might sort of like downplay the side effects of drinking alcohol, especially for pregnant mothers. So how can medical practitioners or basically health-based organizations take their stance on this and educate young women or even older women, and basically like the community in general, about the side effects of drinking alcohol when they're pregnant?
I think, the medical field, and what I'm going to say is going to sound harsh now, they should be the very people who should know the harmful effects of it, because they've got the science. I can understand somebody in a community who's never heard about this, but I don't believe any medical field should be encouraging it. And I think they're far more aware now than it was previously. We need to also be honest in that, because this has been going on for generations, so there is far more awareness of this.
Definitely, and I agree with you, Eleanor, on that. So maybe we can hear from the other ladies also sitting here very quietly, because they're giving or shifting all the attention to you, Eleanor. Especially for children who arrive at Home of Hope after experiencing abuse or neglect, for instance. instance, like what are the first steps in helping them feel safe? Because it's various age groups that comes through to your facility. So you need to build that trust, and already that child feels abandoned or traumatized, and it's not always easy to connect with children firstly, and here it is a child that has been exposed to fetal alcohol syndrome, for instance. So it takes a lot more to build that child's trust, because that child feels like no one truly cares, because look where I already ended up.
So from our side, I would say the first thing that's the most important for us is we don't believe in institutionalization. So we are family-centered. So when they come to us, we make sure that they know they are coming to a family. What they get as with a mom and dad, they'll be getting from us. Even though we are 7 carers at a time, we give them the individual love that they need. We give them the care that they need. We provide them with therapeutic services according to their individual need, according to their strengths, to their weaknesses. We cater to the child individually, and we build that relationship over time. It takes a very long time to gain a child's trust that has FASD. They also tend to gravitate to one person as an authoritative figure, but we try our best to ensure that the children know that they are loved, and it comes from all areas of our organization. Everybody that works for Home of Hope knows the message that we speak to the children, how we deal with the child, so that the care we provide is one form of care, and there isn't different levels of care and different approaches to dealing with them. So from our side, I think I can say quite happily that our children know that they're loved, and we also follow key elements with FASD, such as ensuring the structure is always the same, routine stays the same. We're very specific in instructions that we provide them with. We're consistent in everything that we do. There's just a whole lot that goes into FASD, and a lot of people, I think it's quite easy to deal with a child with FASD. It's just basic behavioral challenges, but it's actually not. I cannot go to a child with FASD today and say, oh no, we're going to the park today and I didn't prepare them 3 days ago, because that will result in a meltdown. So we make sure that everything we do, we follow key elements, we follow routine, we follow structure, and everything is also very visual and concrete. Anything abstract to them, it's very difficult for them to understand.
Thank you very much, Kayla, for that Home of Hope. So that is where we are broadcasting for today as the start of 16 days for no violence against women and children. And we're sitting in a beautiful garden. Like, nature is very close to my heart. I like nature. So, yes, do engage with us.
Tuned into Sakhisizwe, Building the Nation, Nasi, alongside Miral Mansour and
I'm Jasmine Roberts.
Yeah, and today marks the start of 16 days of activism, and during this phase we will be visiting different organizations and then broadcasting live from there. So for today we're at Home of Hope, and we were talking about fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, which is a really important issue that needs to be sort of like, people need to know about it, and there needs to be awareness regarding it, because it signifies abuse and abandonment before the child is even born. So today with us we have Eleanor Burke, the CEO and founder, as well as Kayla Abel, the acting CEO, Roxanne Neka, the principal, and Landisa Sibanda, the senior FACE teacher. And without further ado, we're going to jump right back into the conversation.
Definitely. We basically asked for children who basically arrive at Home of Hope, like what the process is, and Kayla basically took us through that process. So I just want to know, and this is also something that I've learned, how the intake process basically works, because I always thought that you can just come to Home of Hope and just say, listen, I need assistance, my child has been affected or is diagnosed with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, or what do I need to do? If you can just shed some clarity around how that process works, because obviously it doesn't work like that.
So from our side, if you know you have a child that's diagnosed and you're reaching up for help, we're always open to assisting the community on how to work with your child and put the right interventions and strategies in place to help a child. But in terms of intake for organization, you cannot just decide your child's a little bit more difficult for you and we're just going to pack their bags and drop them off at Home of Hope. It doesn't work like that. We are not allowed to accept any children just that pops up on our doorstep. It all goes through DSD's central admissions. But yeah, in terms of needing assistance with how to provide care for a child with FASD, we are always open to helping individuals, because a child with FASD is extremely difficult to care for. And I can only imagine the parents that's in the communities that have children with FASD, what's actually going on in that household. I don't actually even want to think about it, to put it to you like that.
And like you've also mentioned, once you've been diagnosed with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, you won't be able to ever gain your full independency. You will always need someone to care for you.
Yes. So an individual with FASD, once they go into adulthood, they have secondary challenges, and those are things such as suicide, trouble with the law, addiction, substance abuse, work-related issues, early dropouts out of school. And if you listen to what I'm saying, you kind of can pinpoint scenarios in our community where these things are happening. And a lot of the time it is in the more impoverished communities, and that's due to our economy that is so bad and people struggling. It's very hectic.
And if you can maybe, I know you're not medical professionals, but if you can maybe speak a little bit more about how you get diagnosed with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, for instance.
So getting diagnosed with FASD is very difficult in our country. I know Red Cross Children's Hospital does do it, and I know of an organization that does do it, but unfortunately they are closing down. So it's very few places that you can get a child diagnosed with FASD, and it's very expensive.
And I know Eleanor, in the interval, Eleanor basically spoke about there needs to be a link that you actually know the mother has been drinking during the pregnancy in order to know, okay, the child might have fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, because it's not always the case, correct, that someone will be affected if your parents drank or so forth, but we definitely not encouraging you to also drink and not take that risk, basically.
So from our side, FASD is known as an invisible disability. There's not many that show the facial features, which is quite distinct. In order to diagnose, a mom would have to come forward and say, I drank with my baby. But for a mom to come forward, it takes a lot of courage, and you'd want a better life for your baby.
And I also want to know a little bit more about the assistance that you can basically provide, because like you say, it's 1 in a million that you're going to get diagnosed or get a proper diagnostic to be able to say, but my child is suffering or is diagnosed with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, for instance, because like you say, if the features is not there, you won't know, or if the parent don't come forth. But let's say in an instance, a grandmother knows of a child basically drinking and so forth, or maybe a grandchild has fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. How can we better equip that grandmother to basically take care of that child? Because like you say, you will never get independency. You will always need someone to assist you, but a lot of our communities, especially on the Cape Flats, they don't know how to care for these children, because once you reach 18, you're going to be fine. You will be able to go work and be independent, for instance. You're always going to be reliable on someone to care for you.
Yeah. So once they turn 18, as you mentioned, the disability continues. It's permanent brain damage, 100% preventable, 100% incurable. But there are ways to help an individual with FASD. There's strategies that you can put in place. But for someone that's raising an FASD child or young adult, it requires a lot of patience. It's not easy, and I know from the teacher's perspective, Roxanne and Landiso will speak just now as well. It's very difficult because you cannot just give an instruction such as go and take the bin out, wash it, and then put it back where you found it. All they're going to do is take the bin out. They're not going to wash it. They're not going to put it back where they found it. That's too many instructions in one go. You'd have to have visuals. So, for example, in our CYCC, which is our children's home, their chore chart is visual pictures. It's a picture of their face. It's a picture of a clock. It's a picture of what chore they'll be doing and when they'll be doing it. But if we take that away, nothing will get done. They are concrete learners, not abstract.
I think we also need to just bring in here that a young adult who has FASD, they're normally half the age of what they should be. So if they're 18, emotionally they're normally maybe an 8 or 9 year old. So for somebody looking after some person with FASD, you have to understand that you're not dealing with an 18-year-old. A person has got 4 different areas of our lives. So it's our IQ, which is your intellect, and that would be a lot lower than would normally be. Then you have SQ, which is your social ability, and that is also half of your age. And then you have your EQ, which is your emotional ability.
You're tuned into Sakhisizwe, Building the Nation Badzinasi, and we are currently at Home of Hope for the 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children. And today we're speaking with a lovely panel which consists of Eleanor Brooke, Kayla Abel, Roxanne Naika, and Landiso Sibanda. So the primary discussion today centers around when it comes to child abuse and neglect, specifically fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. So without further ado, we're going to jump right back into the conversation.
And thank you very much for that, Miral. We basically spoke about, I'm going to give it over to the principal and the assistant, senior assistant, to just tell us a little bit more about the signs, the early signs that we need to be aware of when a child is diagnosed with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, for instance, because as you know, the 16 days of activism emphasizes that violence against women and children is preventable. But from your experience, what do you personally feel are the root causes you commonly see repeatedly? Where do we need to focus on more for preventive efforts, for instance?
Okay, so from the school's perspective, we have 33 learners at our school. 19 learners are from an informal settlement and the remainder is from our home. When a child, for example, from the informal settlement comes to our school, they come without having showered, eaten, they've come without any routines. And then when they come to school, then they bath and shower and we feed them at the school. So we do this so that we can preempt the struggles that they have faced the previous day, the challenges. We also do a circle time where we look at the emotions of the children and how they are feeling, and that is called preempting behavior so that we can navigate the day. So if we see a child, for example, tapping or looking irritable, those are cues and triggers for us on how we can do a calming technique with them, for example, giving them a calming toy or removing them from the class and assisting them.
Landiso, and from your side, what is it that you experienced so far that you can also convey on to parents how to be better equipped to deal with a child that has been diagnosed with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder?
As a parent, you must know your child very well. You know their behaviors, you know their mannerisms and things like that. So if you see that something is different that day, or they are being aggressive, you can check even their facial expressions or the things that they do in the house. If they are out of the norm, then you know that something is wrong. I think as a parent, that is the time where you must take them out or speak to them and find out what the problem is.
But how do you handle the situation before it actually escalates to that point?
As a teacher, I make sure that I preempt the situation so that it doesn't get to that level where I have to deal with the behavior. But then if I miss the behavior, that is when our structures come into play, our intervention strategies come into play. We have what we call IEPs. These are the intervention strategies that we use to deal with the children.
And you also do have 4 programs, if you can maybe just touch a little bit more on these programs, like how does education become part of the healing journey, for instance, for children who've been experiencing violence or exposed to violence and trauma?
Okay, so I'll start with the school then. From Amatemba's side, the children in our school never had the opportunity in life from the get-go. So we've had children that were put in mainstream school that were expelled in creche already due to the behavior challenges, which is from FASD. So at the school, we ensure that we empower every single child that walks through our door with an education. We make sure that every single child has a brighter future laid out in front of them. Whether it is to go and work in a charity shop or do things with their hands, we try and ensure that we equip each child with a certain skill that they're good at. We work with their strength to empower them to move on into society. But we incorporate that concept throughout our entire organization. So our organization has 5 projects. So we've got our children's home, where we have 25 children, where we provide care 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We have staff on in the morning, the afternoon, and then night shift as well. And we've got different individual behavior plans plans for every single child. They have a different strategy on if this child is feeling a certain way, this is how we address the problem. This child is aggressive, this is how we address this problem. This child struggles with emotion regulation, this is how we deal with this child. And that we take across all our projects. We're only allowed to house the children until they turn 18. Once they turn 18, we legally are not allowed to keep them in our care anymore. But because all our children, or most of our children, came to our home as babies, we took them from the hospital. We were never going to put them out at 18. They are part of our family. So we started a working care farm where once they turn 18, they'll go to the working care farm. For those that can be semi-independent, they will learn skills on our farm. We're currently completing a workshop where they'll learn skills such as building garden trellis and mud kitchens and, learning just basic skills that can equip them to generate some income for themselves one day. We have some that is working in our charity shop to learn retail skills. And then alongside our farm project, we have a program called Living Life. Living Life is a mentor program where we have our manager walk alongside every single young adult in our care. We teach them how to budget, how to do a CV, how to travel on the bus, what it's like to go to the clinic on their own, what they need to ask doctors. Because a lot of the things is in a children's home, you kind of become sheltered. And once you become an adult, the world just kind of kicks you out the door and you need to know exactly what you're supposed to do. And imagine you're 18 and as Eleanor mentioned earlier, you're actually 9 years old and we've just kicked you out the door. What is going through your mind at that point, The first thing, we've got a young adult, he got his ID card and he said, I got my card, how much money is on it? We had to explain to him, you don't get money on the card, and we had to go through the whole process. So at 18, they don't actually have the knowledge they need to succeed in society, where that's what we're doing once they're 18 to 25. Once they are semi-independent and are able to transition into society, they move off our farm, but we're always there to help until whatever age they need our assistance. For the ones that's lower functioning, that's too severely impacted by FASD, they will live with us forever. We will make sure that they are always cared for. We provide whatever they need. And then we also got our charity shop, which is we ask the local community for donations. It not only works as a means to raising income for the care of our children and young adults, but it's also to teach skills to the young adults. It's teaching them the retail skills, as I mentioned earlier, but also we're helping people in the community. They come to us, they purchase items at a reasonable price, and they are also able to go resell it and make money for themselves as well.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing some clarity around how the programs basically work. I just want to know also, you've mentioned about the charity shop and how it is open for people to donate. How does the donation process basically work? Especially this time of the year, a lot of people tend to open their hearts and they want to do good and give back. So this is one way how they can contribute towards your cause, basically. How do they do that?
So our charity shop is located at 215 Bloberg Road in Tableview. They are open Monday to Friday, 9 till 4, and on a Saturday and public holidays, 9 till 2. So anybody that wants to donate, they are welcome to pop in there, drop off their items, or they can contact our office on 021-556-3573, and we can collect larger items or large quantities from the donors. Yeah, it helps us tremendously as our charity shop is our largest fundraising initiative. So anybody that donates, we are so grateful for the donation.
Thank you very much for giving the details on that, Kayla. And what role does the community play in either perpetuating or also preventing violence against children? How can ordinary citizens also become part of the solution and not just be part of the problem, and government also play their role, for instance? Because I know earlier we spoke about how a lot of people are not technically equipped enough how to deal with a child that has fetal alcohol or that's on the spectrum basically. But how do we equip our medical facilities, for instance, and also our law enforcement, our police, especially during this time? Because one of the things that you identified also today is it's very hard to be diagnosed, to say that you are on the spectrum, for instance, and a lot of police, and I don't really think the police is equipped on to deal with someone that is on the spectrum. So how do we better equip our government, our law enforcement, police, hospitals?
I think the biggest tool we have is our mouths. It's word of mouth. You've learned a whole lot of things today. Start speaking. We really just need to start talking. We all need to take responsibility to stop ignoring it and actually to start speaking. When you're with your friends at dinner, share with them what you learned today. When you're out with your buddies at a club, share with them. When you see somebody pregnant, don't judge, just tell them, are they aware what damage could take place. I think it's word of mouth. And the more we speak, the more awareness we're going to create. More people are going to start asking questions, the more information we can give. And the other thing which is available to all of us is social media. It's out there. Start researching it. Go Google. I mean, ChatGPT is everybody's best friend lately. Use what's out there to get more information, because that's the world you all live in. Us older generation, we're a little taken back by it, but there's a lot of information available. So I also don't think there's really a reason why we cannot speak up.
Eleanor, but I think the problem is people don't want to use these platforms to do research on things that truly matters. They always say this is the uncomfortable conversations that we don't have when we are braaiing or family gatherings and so forth. So I honestly would like a solution, like what needs to happen in order to create more visibility around that, and so that people can feel, but this is your safe space, because in most families there isn't that safe space for you to talk about issues such as this that are so vital.
So the question is, who's going to stand up and start talking? You know, who's going to start advocating? It is easy to say we don't want to have the conversations, but change in world took somebody to rise up and start speaking. So if we want things to change in our community, we need ambassadors to get up and speak. We need to challenge our government. We need to challenge our police force. We need to challenge the medical facilities. We need to challenge people in our families. We're quick to challenge for things that is our right, but we're very slow to challenge for the rights of things that affect our whole communities. So my question back to you and the community is, who's going to rise up and start speaking? Who's going to be the lone voice in the desert and says, there's a problem, here's an answer? Because an organization like us, and there are many organizations like us, we do have answers, okay? But we can't be the only ones saying what it is and advocating. We need others to rise up and advocate.
And as the saying basically goes, it takes a village to raise a child, indeed. So it's not just, or it shouldn't be put in upon one organization alone to be the solution to the problem. That's why we are a country and we are supposed to unite as a nation, but technically that is not happening currently.
And also, just what you guys are doing today is big, because you're putting it out there. You know, you're using a radio station and you're creating that awareness. And it shouldn't only be happening once a year. We should be talking about these things all the time.
And that is exactly what Bush Radio has been doing. We focus on these issues. We highlight these issues for 365 days a year, because it doesn't just affect people during 16 days and then after the 16 days it's just going to disappear.
And that's awesome. And for us to be a part of this is amazing. So yeah, we also have to say to Bush Radio, well done, you rising up and actually advocating for the problems that are being faced in our country.
Thank you very much for that, Eleanor.
And you're still tuned into Sakhisizwe, Building the Nation, Baudinasi, during the first day of 16 days of activism, and today we are at Home of Hope, and the primary focus for today's conversation is about fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. So we're just going to continue the discussion regarding that with Eleanor Brooke, with Kayla Abel, Roxanne Neka, and Landiso Sibanda. So Landiso, I'd like to address the next question to you, just to jump right back into the conversation. I just want to ask you about what are some of the challenges that you guys face as educators, as the senior phase teacher. What are some of the things that you've had to deal with on a daily basis? And the reason I'm asking this is because, as Eleanor mentioned in the previous segment, about how it's really important to raise awareness when it comes to FASD, so that maybe it will help someone out in the future, or help our listeners who might have individuals with FASD in their communities, and just maybe educate people to be more aware when it comes to alcohol consumption and the effects it can have.
I'll group the challenges that we face as teachers they lie under behavioral challenges. These children have very difficult behaviors that we have to manage every day, ranging from swearing to being aggressive to being rude. I mean, us as teachers, we know they are not being rude. That is the fuzz that is in them, but other people won't understand it. There's also academic problems. They tend to forget quickly. When you teach them something, tomorrow they don't know, and they also struggle with attention. So when you are teaching, they are quickly distracted, easily distracted to other things. So that's mostly the problems that we face with them.
So we talked about the individual challenges that you guys have to face as educators when you're dealing with the children head on. But what about the community challenges that people might have to face as a group, or basically some secondary challenges that arise because of the behavioral challenges that Landisa was talking about?
So to connect the two, you would find a lot of individuals with FASD that is stealing in the community. They're doing drugs, they're fighting. There's homelessness is a big one as well. And because you are born with the addiction, it's very difficult to stop. Even though as children, maybe they were not doing the alcohol and things like that. But the minute you get the opportunity to taste it as a young adult, that's when you're caught in the addiction cycle again. And it's so important for us as an organization, as well as for the community, to try and end the cycle of addiction as well as abuse. Because if we don't end the cycle of addiction, the cycle of abuse starts again. Our children come from communities and families where they have been abused, abandoned and neglected. So what do you think is going to happen when they get to 18 and they start drinking? That cycle starts again. That's when the abuse starts again. And not to defend anybody, but they're not in control of what is happening in a situation. And I know we spoke earlier about, we weren't on air, but we spoke earlier about if an FASD individual has a baby with someone that has not drank, that baby, by the time that, as Eleanor mentioned, they are 6 years old, they will be higher functioning than their parents. How would an individual with FASD manage a toddler? They're not going to manage. They're going to become frustrated because they are functioning at a teenager's level, which is very sad. And these are the things that the communities are facing. They're having problems with our youth. The youth do not want to go to school. They do not want to get jobs. They want to sit at home. They want to drink. They want to steal. They're giving to peer pressure very easily, which is a sad reality. And we see a lot of it in the colored communities. I don't know if you have anything else to add on that, Al.
Maybe we can talk about the secondary brain aspect that Eleanor mentioned when we were not on air. Could you expand a bit more on that?
The external brain?
Yeah.
So, for somebody with FASD, they need an external brain, and the community becomes the external brain. For a very simple example, my son now has a driving lesson that has been planned for 2 o'clock, and I've had to set my phone to remind him, even though he knows. When I called him now, he was busy with something else. Now, if the driving school arrives and he's not ready, they become frustrated because he's not being respectful, he's not keeping time, and they will actually penalize and he'll lose the lesson, but it's just because he's not able to remember what needs to happen. So it is an impact on community to realize, and families to realize, working with a person with FASD, you are permanently the external brain. So it's a lot of work on a caregiver, and it's a lot of work on a community, because not only do you have to think for yourself, you have to think for the other person with the FASD.
Thank you very much for expanding a little bit further on that, Eleanor. And as we approach the end of our conversation here at Home of Hope for the 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children, I just also want to know, what concrete actions can our listeners basically take from today onwards, whether through just supporting Home of Hope or just creating a society where women and children are truly safe and responsible, especially since the festive season, which they basically call the silly season, is basically on our porch.
So you know what? The silly season is when everybody's drinking and partying. So let's really just be responsible in every decision we make. in the silly season that's coming ahead. And then if you really want to be silly, you can join Home of Hope here in Tableview on the 12th of December, right up until the 30th December, where we are decorating our school into a fantasy world of Christmas fun. You know, families don't do a lot of things together, and so part of our Christmas festivities is to draw families together to actually come and enjoy some time together as families celebrating Christmas.
So amazing, and it looks so real, and the children would really appreciate something like that. And like you say, too many families don't have that family gatherings anymore. It's like the father is doing his own thing, the mother is doing their own thing, and the children are just out and about. So here is the opportunity for you to come on the 12th of December, and like you say, it starts at 8 o'clock.
Starts at 8 o'clock, right up until the 30th of December. Every evening we open, and it's free, so you don't have to have money to come in and walk around, because I know people don't have. And you're welcome to bring your second-hand goods here, because we collect it and then we sort out what our children need, and the rest will go to our charity shop. And it's just festive time for us. There's some popcorn machines and just a lot of fun pancakes that you can come and buy, and it's not expensive. So we've tried to do something that draws family together, because you know what, the families that stand together are the ones that are going to make it within our societies.
Thank you very much. Any message of hope that you would like to leave our listeners with, especially during the 16 days?
I think it's important to spread the word, and I think also to take a stand. If you see something that you know is not right, say something. Don't be quiet, because you can say something and save someone's life. So from our side, I think it's say something. Don't just watch and stand back. Say something.
Thank you very much, Roxanne.
Word of mouth, and speak up. Also awareness, not judgmental, and understand the children in your community.
And so,
I think they've just said it all. Let's make people aware about FASD that is existing, and let's get the children help quickly.
And just contact details, how people can get in touch with you again, and any vital information that you'd also like to leave our listeners with.
So we can be reached on our website, which is www.homeofhope.co.za. We are also on social media. We are on Facebook as Home of Hope. We are on Instagram as well as TikTok. So for those out there, share our story, share our mission. That's how we create awareness on FASD as well as abandoned, abused and neglected, the effects of that. And then you can contact us on 021-556-3573 or WhatsApp us on 061-278-4826.
And thank you so much for sharing these insights with us today. The work happening at Home of Hope, from the Child and Youth Care Center to Amatemba School, from Anselm Farm to the charity shop, represents what's possible when we commit to protecting our most vulnerable and creating pathways from trauma to healing. So the 16 days of activism reminds us that ending violence against women and children requires all of us, not just during these 16 days, but every single day, whether it's speaking up when we witness abuse, supporting organizations, doing this critical work, or even examining our own attitudes and behaviors. We all have a role to play. So if you'd like to support Home of Hope, you can visit their charity shop at 215 Bloberg Road in Tableview. Make a donation or learn more about sponsoring a child or a young adult. For information about Amatemba School, contact education at homeofhope.co.za. And remember, every child deserves safety, dignity, as well as the opportunity to reach their full potential, because together we can make that vision a reality. So thank you for listening, and let's continue working towards a future free from violence.
So if you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, please reach out to your local authorities and also support services immediately. So that basically concludes today's edition of Sakhisizwe, Building the Nation Podinasi here at Home of Hope. And you've been listening to Bush Radio 89.5 FM, the mother of all community radio stations in Africa. And we were broadcasting live from Home of Hope. And tomorrow we will continue our 16 days of activism journey at Hope House Counseling Center. So together we stand to end violence against women and children, both online and offline. Stay tuned, stay informed, and also stay united.